The 2017-2018 fiscal year budget statement was read by the Treasury CS, that's Henry Rotich, yesterday afternoon. Joining us in studio to talk more about this is Kwame Owino. He's CEO, Institute of Economic Affairs, IEA. Thank you very much, Owino, for being with us here on Worldview. There are those who've described that budget as populist. Do you share in those sentiments?
I don't think this budget is very different from the budgets we've had before. But in it, yes, you see it's characteristic of our government to have a huge budget like this is, and then split the money into small places, give one to the arts, give some more to people with disabilities, to the aged and everything else, trying to slice it to everybody else. So the method is the same. I think it's a size that's different for us. So that might be.
What overview would you give of the budget, the statement, as you heard, in terms of the priority areas for the government, where there's more taxation, where there is, reprieve as well?
Yeah.
How did you describe?
Well, I think this is, if you ask me, and let's concentrate on the tax side, if you ask me, this is a budget for, not for investors actually, for foreign direct investors, because you saw a lot of concentration on reducing taxes for investors, the tax waivers, a reduction of taxes for vehicle assemblers for the first 5 years at 15%, while the others are 20%. So what you're seeing is an asymmetry in the sense that if you come from outside, you get better conditions than domestic taxpayers. I mean, domestic manufacturers. Is that a good thing? I don't think it is, but that's the character that they've chosen. So in a way, this is a very huge gift from other taxpayers to people who come in the name of investments, which are needed, yes, but I think that design should be relooked at. In addition to that, of course, betting the industry. I think that's a really, really big hit. That's not the way we'd have thought it should be designed, but yes, nevertheless, to raise taxes from 15.25 to 50%, that's really, really high excess taxes. I think that's part of the highest excess taxes we have on services in this country. So that too was one. But overall, you see the need to spread taxes around. Yes, the laptops, or the gadgets for primary school. I think there's a huge expansion of the money that's going to be spent for hiring more teachers at 2 billion shillings. And then the big one is SGR. So it's clear, while the cabinet secretary didn't mention it, 75 billion shillings all at once is going up to pay for SGR, which means part of that money is not just the construction, but we're actually now repaying the debt. So the repayment of the debt is begun. Because 75 billion is quite a big chunk.
And talking of debt, it is a concern for many Kenyans now. The president, in his State of the Nation address, tried to allay those fears, saying that Kenya is treading carefully. She's cognizant of her where she is in terms of her debt, servicing the same, not getting Kenya in trouble. Are you convinced we are not treading on dangerous ground?
No, I'm not. The cabinet secretary mentioned yesterday that we have, before the financing considered, we have 9.6% of GDP in terms of our deficit for just this year. So what that means is we are spending 9.6%. We are spending much, much more than we had. Of course, it will be covered through debts and some grants that will come in. But on the whole, we've never had a deficit as big as what we have this year. And last year, we never had another one as big as that one.
So it keeps going bigger and bigger.
Yeah, so our only faith is that as we construct the SGRs and as we connect more people to power, that economic growth will grow much faster. I think I am not convinced on the side of SGR that we're going to get good value for that money and that we're going to get it as quickly as we assume.
Why?
But nevertheless. Pardon?
Why don't you think so?
Well, we bought 40-year-old technology at twice the price.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that technology is 40 years old. Twice the price. Our neighbors around here, Ethiopia, Tanzania, have superior technology for 3/4 of what we bought for. So obviously they've gotten better deals than we are. Now, whether that is our own dysfunction in procurement or whether there's something else that's afoot, I cannot tell. But yes, our technology, if we just basically went and costed it based on international prices, we paid twice what we could have paid.
Wow. But more ugali on the table.
Yes. No, and that's a good thing. Yes. To his credit, look, he's waived, or rather, he's made a proposal, because the only people who can waive taxes are actually Parliament. So the cabinet secretary has made a proposal to Parliament to waive taxation on white maize for 4 months because of the drought and the shortage of food. That's a very brilliant. In fact, it should have been done much earlier, because we've had an emergency since January, I think. So obviously that's a good one. Now, maize farmers are not too happy. Well, they don't have, we can't keep 80,000 maize farmers happy at the expense of 9 million Kenyan households.
Yeah.
But that's the right trade-off that the minister's made.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what are your concerns looking at the budget, the deficits we're having, issues such as corruption and the leakages that are experienced in the country?
Yeah.
Of course, there's the wage bill that the president as well has been talking about, and we're waiting to see what Parliament will do. Will they take, salary cuts and all?
Yeah.
But for you, what are those areas that need to be priority to tighten up those loopholes?
Well, the Cabinet Secretary made a comment, and one of the things he did was he dedicated 150 million, Yes, 150 million shillings to help counties manage their IFMAS systems because of, to help with managing money at the county level. He did not mention anything about strengthening IFMAS at the national government level. Because if you remember, if you split this budget, for every 7 shillings that goes to national government, only 1 shilling goes to the counties.
Right.
So more money is actually spent at the national government level. So strengthening financial management at the national government level is also an issue, which he, I think, whether by design or default, did not talk about. But strengthening systems in general is because it's one thing to spend 2 billion shillings on the arts or whatever amount of money you have, if half of it is going to be pilfered or it isn't going to be spent well. I think he also talked about, yes, the other figure was 8.1 billion that's going to be used for leasing cars for policemen, which is a good idea. But now at the Institute of Economic Affairs, we are questioning why. We took the 8.1 billion shillings and found out what the London Metropolitan Police spend on 1 car. And we found out that for that same amount of money, we could have bought 2,000 cars.
No.
So I'm asking myself, how many cars are we leasing for that amount? So in the absence of detail, it is not clear that the choices that have been made are not wasteful or not. So I'm not necessarily saying it is, but I'm saying if we could have bought 2,000 cars for that amount, for the number of police stations that we have, I think we could have given every police station maybe something like 10 cars.
Wow. So not getting value for money.
I don't think we're getting value for money. That's what I'm thinking. Unless those cars are something else. We don't seem to be getting value for money. So that leasing agreement, I think, should be reviewed. But in general, of course, salaries are there. I think the dispute with the teachers is resolved. And as you're saying, my view about wages, settling wages in Kenya, as the president said it, he said the right thing, but it's not a technical discussion anymore. It's the politics. If the president makes a decision and tells Parliament, look, we have to cut this, of course they'll resist. They may even delay budget passing, but it's a political question now. It's not the technical one. That we actually need to trim wages is clear. Every Kenyan is convinced. Whether the president can tough it out as Parliament tries to get more allowances on the side and everything else is what, and even the Cabinet Secretary alone cannot resolve it. That has to be both arms of government just deciding to do the right thing.
The right thing. Many thanks, Kwame Owino, Chief Executive Officer, Institute of Economic Affairs, with us this morning. Let's continue with news. And French photographer, that's Yuri Lenket, known for his portraits of famous rock and hip-hop musicians, showcases another side of his work in a new exhibition in Dakar. In Yuri Doesn't Sleep, Lenket turns his lens towards Africa, its musicians and its nightlife.